Demand increases on the Thunder Bay Police prompts monthly updates. Good evening and thank you for joining us. Thunder Bay Police Chief Darcy Fleury says the demands on the force are increasing, and he's concerned about the toll that takes on his officers. Fleury has begun issuing a monthly message to the community, which highlights major incidents and the number of calls they deal with. Josh Morano sat down with the police chief today and has more. Josh?
Thanks, Riley. Chief Fleury says the monthly messages are part of his commitment to public engagement and transparency. He's hoping they not only keep the public informed, but also reduce the number of non-urgent calls they receive. Almost 4,100 calls in February 2024 alone, up 9% from last year's total. Intimate partner cases, assault, and suicide calls all saw significant increases compared to February 2023. This is what Thunder Bay Chief of Police Darcy Fleury is trying to show the public with his new monthly report. While he wants to ensure safety first and foremost, Fleury says these do take a toll on the workload officers have, specifically with mental health calls, as 2 officers must accompany the person until they are prioritized by a doctor.
There has been examples where I've been in this building coming in early and all our cars are at the hospital because they have to, they have all these different cases. We have seen an increase in mental health calls. It doesn't mean it's a true mental health call where the person is going through a crisis, but it comes in as a call, so we have to treat it that way. Heavy on the resources.
Fleury adds there are other avenues for people to take who are experiencing mental health crisis without dialing 911.
We have sought some more funding to increase those programs, like the IMPACT program, for example, and we're going to continue to do that. We find it very beneficial, and it really does help us when we encounter somebody that's having a crisis, maybe a mental health crisis, that we can direct them to a different avenue instead of taking you into police custody or enforcement routes.
This week, he reported to the Thunder Bay Police Services Board that the 2023 police budget was overspent by $2.8 million, mainly related to staffing and overtime costs. With that, he adds how there is a human cost as well, responding to certain calls of drug, gun, and gang-related crimes, taking police resources away from other calls for service. There's also a large number of officers off work on WSIB.
I think we're good with the resources we have. We just need to really find ways to reduce some of the cost, which is, maybe helping some of our officers that are injured to make sure that they're safe and that they're able to come back to work, kind of those kinds of things, as well as just really taking a good hard look at the kind of workload that we do have right now.
Josh Morano, TBT News.
7 people have been arrested after Thunder Bay Police executed 2 search warrants last night. Officers searched a residence on Macker Avenue and another one on Finlayson Street. Around $135,000 worth of cocaine and fentanyl was seized, along with nearly $100,000 in cash. 1 city resident and 6 people from Southern Ontario remain in custody with future court dates. A fire at an apartment complex in Westfort prompted a large number of first responders and other local agencies to spring into action last night. All 6 stories of the Spence Court building had to be evacuated after a fire broke out inside on the ground floor unit. Acting Deputy Fire Chief John Balabuck was on the scene and describes what happened.
7:30 p.m. roughly, Thunder Bay Fire Rescue received a call of heavy black smoke in a 6-story apartment complex in Westfort. So they made a rapid attack on the situation, brought it down, but since the apartment was smoke-filled, we had to do a full evacuation of approximately 150 to 160 individuals. A big thanks to the other departments with the City of Thunder Bay. We had transit and community services step up to the plate, so we had 3 buses on standby, where we were able to house the occupants for a short, brief time to stay warm in the cold.
2 residents on the first floor of the building retreated for smoke inhalation. The Electrical Safety Authority was brought in to ensure the power could be turned back on, and the evacuated residents were able to return to their units just before midnight. Balabuck says they've now been able to pinpoint the cause of the fire.
So the messages that we're looking at is to just hammer in that if you're using a candle, please attend to it. This fire could have been easily avoided. It was a candle that was left unattended on a bed.
Arrowland First Nation has received more than $20 million from Ottawa to build an Elders Lodge in the community. The project is supported by Infrastructure Canada's Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Fund. Lee Noonan has more.
Arrowland First Nation is getting $20.5 million to build an Elders Lodge. The facility should take roughly 2 years to build and will house 30 elders, many of whom are now living outside the community. Ireland councillor Chad Kashkish says bringing those elders home is a big deal.
A lot of our elders leaving, it's a huge impact for the First Nation because of that and the knowledge keeping and stuff like that. You'd have them here, and then you can create programs again where we could bring in the children to sit down with elders and stuff like that to pass on this knowledge.
Right now, many elders are forced to move closer to healthcare services in municipalities like Greenstone or Thunder Bay.
We can have our local nurse go in to do things like foot care, diabetes screening. It'll be good for our elders to be coming home because, their families here, they're missing out with their grandkids.
The lodge will include 20 one-bedroom apartments suitable for a single person or couple, as well as common areas for cultural and social activities and fitness and nursing spaces. The building will also be eco-friendly, designed to withstand northern winters and minimize carbon impact. The net zero carbon design was key in securing the competitive grant.
When I first started 8.5 years ago, oftentimes Indigenous communities, including in my own riding, didn't even know that they were eligible to apply for some of these general streams of funding. And for me, it's really exciting to see communities like Ireland start to be able to not just receive support through other more traditional departments of the Government of Canada for community life and other kinds of needs, but to be able to compete against other non-Indigenous applicants.
For those elders who do still live at home, the community hopes moving them into the lodge will also help address the First Nations housing crisis by freeing up homes. Right now, only about half the First Nations' 800 members live on reserve. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
The Ontario government is investing over $1.8 billion into a new municipal housing program. Premier Doug Ford made the announcement today, saying the money will be used to help communities improve roads and water infrastructure. Siobhan Morris reports.
Next week's budget will include direct help for cities and towns, cash to make sure they can accommodate new homes.
We're launching the new Municipal Housing Infrastructure Program with $1 billion in funding that will support building core infrastructure projects such as roads and bridges and water infrastructure. Thank you. That's big money.
This boost welcomed by Ontario's big city mayors. It can help build up entirely new networks in new neighborhoods like this one, or set existing ones up to grow.
Pipes were sized for a different era. They weren't sized for another 25, in our case, actually 29,000 homes. So we need new infrastructure, we need water, wastewater capacity.
The Premier is shooting down a key recommendation from the government's Housing Affordability Task Force, allowing fourplexes as of right in every municipality to fill the so-called missing middle.
That's a massive mistake.
Many cities have already allowed this kind of housing that allows one home to be split into 4 distinct units. But Doug Ford won't force anyone's hand.
We are not going to go into communities and build 4-story or 6-story buildings beside residents like this. It's off the table for us. We're going to build homes, single dwelling homes, town homes. That's what we're going to focus on.
And that was Siobhan Morris reporting. Diversity Thunder Bay hosted their annual celebration event today to mark the United Nations International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. This year's guest speaker was the former chief of Cowessess First Nation, Cadmus Delorme, who shared an important message with citizens of Thunder Bay. Nev Van Pelt has the details.
For the first time, Diversity Thunder Bay decided to host their annual event as a luncheon rather than a breakfast. This year's guest speaker, Cadmus Delorme, has an accomplished background, including an honorary degree from the Saskatchewan Polytechnic Institution, and he's also the former chief of Cowessess First Nation.
Today I'm here to bring a message of hope. You know, every one of us in this city, in this province and country inherited a history together, Indigenous people and Canadians. And so today I'm going to tie together truth, because there's only one truth, and I'm going to bring a message on what reconciliation means to all of us moving forward.
Diversity Thunder Bay's main focus as a group of volunteers is to make the city a welcoming and safe place for all, without discrimination of any kind. They've been celebrating this day by putting on these events since 2006, and co-chair Ellen Chambers explained the importance of this day each year.
That's what these noted days are for, is so that people can at least at one point in the year say, oh, this is a really important thing, and we can measure it and do things to help change our world. And so that's why we do it on March 21st.
Chambers said there's a lot of thought that goes into who they choose to speak for the event, and they were very excited to have DeLorme here to share his message of hope. He brought up the importance of the United Nations International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination and how it's not something that should be limited to one day.
Every day is diversity to us. In this country, we are about diversity. And, to bring it today in a city of Thunder Bay, in real and truth, we all know our history is not the easiest around here when it comes to Indigenous people and Canadians. But at the end of the day, we have one thing for our future, and it's hope for our next generations.
The event also saw the annual presenting of the Respect Awards. Mary Kazoris received the individual award for her work with the Elizabeth Fry Society, which helps women and gender-diverse people towards healthier lifestyles. And the Walleye magazine received the Respect Award for an organization or business for bringing their readers inspiring stories of diversity and inclusion in Thunder Bay. Nev Van Pelt, TBT News.
The Boralaskan Faculty of Law is celebrating its 10th anniversary. The law school at Lakehead University is rounding off its milestone year with 3 days of events for alumni, students, and the general public. This school was founded in 2013 and named after Supreme Court Chief Justice Boralaskan, who was born and raised in the town of Fort William. At the time, it was the first new law school in the province in over 40 years. The school was a bit of an underdog when it was founded, according to Sarah McLeod, the school's manager of strategic initiatives and student engagement. But she says it's come a long way in the past decade.
So we've grown quite a bit. We started out with 4 full-time faculty. That's now grown to 12 full-time faculty. We have about 25 additional staff supports, including a full Indigenous Relations office. We have 2 legal clinics housed right in the building, serving clients, and we also have an Indigenous Law and Justice Institute as well.
Over the past 10 years, our program really has evolved. 3 years ago, we launched our Indigenous Law and Justice Institute, the Minnawabandan Inakanagewanin Indigenous Law and Justice Institute. That's seeing the law in a good way. And with that, we have done some land-based learning, some curriculum development, some research with Indigenous communities on revitalizing their Indigenous laws.
The school kicked off 3 days of celebrations with an address from University President Gillian Siddall, along with a pipe ceremony and feast to affirm a commitment to its Indigenous law mandate. Tomorrow will feature a panel discussion and networking event for alumni, and they're wrapping up the celebrations with an open house Saturday afternoon for the general public. Well, turning our attention now to weather, Fiona. It was still chilly, especially in the morning, but it was sunny, so I can't complain.
Yeah, lots of sunshine, which unfortunately didn't do a lot to add to the temperatures. We topped out with a high of -4, and at this time of year, that's about half a dozen degrees below normal for this time of year. And then you factor in the wind chill, felt like -10. Now, overnight, we had a low of -18 and wind chills of -24, so it was very cold last night. And we're obviously not the only ones experiencing that very cool condition. If you take a look at the current temperatures, we're not much of a spread. It's pretty consistent for much of the region. Fort Frances currently at -5 and a wind chill of -10. They too have lots of sunshine, and that sunshine extends up into the more northern parts of the region. Red Lake last night saw wind chills plummet to -27. At this hour, with a temperature of -8, it feels closer to -17. Similar temperatures as you head eastward into Sioux Lookout, Upsala, Armstrong, and Greenstone. Definitely the coldest place in the region last night. We saw wind chills hit -36. At this hour, with a temperature of -10, the wind chill is currently hovering around -19. That is way below normal for this time of year. And Sault Ste. Marie had light snow most of the morning until about noon, and then partly cloudy skies the rest of the afternoon. They're currently at -6 and a wind chill of -12. So At this hour, not too much variation in conditions, but last night, boy, there's a real big difference between areas to the north and areas further south. Now, tonight in the city of Thunder Bay, we are going to drop down to a low of -17 and wind chills of -21. So very similar to last night. And it's been fairly clear today, but around midnight, we're going to see some clouds move in, partly cloudy conditions for the rest of the night as winds continue from the west about 10 to 20 kilometers per hour. And for the rest of the week, we will be nothing if not consistent. We are looking at more sunshine, but these temperatures are expected to stay below the freezing mark during the day. And that's still a hard pill to swallow for this time of year.
It is. It's cold. Yesterday I said it was a little cold. I take it back. It's cold.
It's just cold.
It's just cold. Thank you so much, Fiona. Well, when we come back, we'll turn our attention to a heated debate on the carbon tax that has now prompted a non-confidence vote. We'll have more on that as your Thursday News Hour continues.
Conservatives need to stop spreading falsehoods. The PBO has been very clear that 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more money back. It is true now. It will be true in 2030.